U.S. deployed aircraft carriers to patrol South China Sea amid rising tensions with China. The U.S. has deployed 2 aircraft carrier strike groups to the Pacific, the USS Ronald Reagan and USS Nimitz, as part of efforts to safeguard against the possibility of another coronavirus outbreak in the region. The deployments come as China, which has a history of tension with the U.S. in the region, has also increased its presence, the Wall Street Journal reported. The Defense Ministry of Taiwan said Tuesday several Chinese jets briefly entered the country's air defense identification zone, while Japan's government said a Chinese aircraft carrier and its strike group were sighted making a return trip through the southern parts of Japan's island. The U.S. launched the deployment after a coronavirus outbreak forced the USS Roosevelt into port in Guam earlier this year. Rear ADM George M. Wickoff, commander of the strike group led by the Reagan. The Navy was building on this experience to create a bubble of health. All crew members involved in the deployment were tested twice for the virus during a 2-week quarantine ahead of embarking, during which some asymptomatic carriers were identified and kept off the ships, a Navy official told the newspaper. New procedures had been put in place that allow crew with a fever to call for medical staff without physically walking to the sick bay, potentially spreading the virus along the way, as well as creating designated areas on board for isolation. The ships will also broadcast video messages highlighting safety precautions such as social distancing and wearing personal protective equipment. The bottom line is that the mission endures and doesn't take a break for the virus, Wickoff said from the USS Ronald Reagan on a call with reporters, according to the newspaper. We continue to promote regional security with our partners and maintain a very high state of readiness, while declining to discuss specific areas of operation. The unusual simultaneous appearance of the 3 warships, accompanied by Navy cruisers, destroyers, fighter jets and other aircraft, comes as the U.S. escalates criticism of Beijing's response to the coronavirus outbreak, its moves to impose greater control over Hong Kong, and its campaign to militarize human-made islands in the South China Sea. There have been some indications in Chinese writings that the United States was hit hard by COVID-19. That military preparedness was low, so perhaps there is an effort by the United States to signal China that it should not miscalculate. Bonnie Glaser, director of the China Power Project at the Center for Strategic and International Studies. The Chinese will definitely portray this as an example of us provocations, and as evidence that the U.S. is a source of instability in the region. President Donald Trump, criticized for his own handling of the coronavirus outbreak, has condemned China for what he sees as a failure to adequately warn the world about the COVID-19 threat. The administration has also moved to ban Chinese graduate students and researchers, with links to the People's Liberation Army or other security services from the United States. The convergence of 3 carrier strike groups in the region is unusual because of the limited number of carriers, and the fact that they are often cycling through repair schedules, port visits, training or deployments to other parts of the world. This week, however, Navy commanders said they were able to take advantage of the timing, particularly during this period of great power competition with China. The U.S. National Defense Strategy cites China as a top security concern. And Pentagon leaders have been working to shift more resources and military assets to the region to battle what they see as Beijing's growing economic influence and military might. The ability to be present in a strong way is part of the competition. And as I always tell my guys here, you've got to be present to win when you're competing. Stephen Kohler, Director of Operations at Indo-Pacific Command. Carriers and carrier strike groups writ large are phenomenal symbols of American naval power. I really am pretty fired up that we've got 3 of them at the moment. Speaking to the Associated Press from his office in Hawaii, Kohler said China is slowly and methodically building up military outposts in the South China Sea, putting missile and electronic warfare systems on them. The U.S. and other allies and partners in the region have beefed up operations near the human-made islets to try to blunt China's development, but none of that has appeared to work. Kohler said that most recently China deployed aircraft to a fiery cross reef in the Spratly Islands and is now operating them out of there. On Thursday, the strike group warships were spread out across the Indo-Pacific. The USS Theodore Roosevelt and its strike group are operating in the Philippine Sea near Guam. The USS Nimitz strike group is in the Pacific off the U.S. west coast. The USS Ronald Reagan has left port in Japan and is operating in the Philippine Sea south of there.